So today I'm very excited to be with Nimrod Kramer from Daily.dev. Hi, how are you,
Hi,
Nimrod?
Amir. A pleasure to be here.
Yes, very, very exciting. Disclosure, you're one of my portfolio company and a good friend, so I'm super happy to have you here with us. Um, and the reason I asked you to join is because you did something that a lot of people really strive to do, which is to build a product for developers and scale it from zero to millions. And I want to talk about how you did that and what are your learnings from that. So maybe start with an introduction of yourself, and then we'll dive right in.
Awesome. Thank you. So, my name is Nimrod Kramer, as you said. I'm co-founder and CEO of a company called Daily.dev. And at Daily.dev, we help millions of engineers stay up to date with everything that's happening in tech. We give them a safe and very positive place to socialize with other like-minded engineers in small subgroups, sub-communities. We call them squads. And we also help them to find a job as of very recently. So you can think of Daily.dev as some sort of like a professional network for developers, or as we like to describe it, as if LinkedIn and GitHub had a child. Um, this is us.
I love that. That's an image that's going to be stuck in my brain for a while. Um, okay. So, how do you get started? So you come up with this idea. How do you get from like 0 to 10 to 100?
So the first inception started more or less by something in between a mistake and a personal need. So for not a lot of people know that, but Daily.dev started as a side project, as a pet project in another startup that we co-founded, where our engineering team had a very strong need to stay at the bleeding edge of everything that happened in that very specific niche that we were working on. But the problem was that there's been a lot of different content sources with a lot of different writers that could potentially write about it. And it just took a lot of time and effort to find the kind of content that you want to read. And eventually, the more senior you are in your engineering career, the less time you have. Not only because you're senior and you're busy and you're cynical and you're skeptical and you're becoming a better bullshit detector, but also because you grow in life, right? You have family, so you have kids, and you just have less bandwidth. And that thing that is profoundly important for you to just stay good at your job, which is stay up to date, doesn't doesn't add up, right? You don't have the time to find the right content. By the time you found content, if it wasn't high quality, you've already wasted the little time and energy that you've had. So we decided to build something for ourselves. It started from basically one of our co-founders teasing the others, saying, hey, developers are building for everyone, but they very rarely build something for themselves, which is ridiculous because he's a designer. And he said, if I had the power to build things, which is what I feel a lot of people now feeling with AI, but back then it was more or less of a science fiction. If I had the ability to build anything, I would solve that problem. I see how much you suffer. So we built this nice internal project, and it
What
started.
was it?
It was just a browser extension. So we wanted it to be a browser extension that opens every new tab. So we don't need to actually build a habit. We want it to be always on, always there. So whenever there's a new piece of content, it's just going to be out there. We can bookmark it and read it whenever we have some time. That aggregated a lot of different RSS feeds. So in the beginning, what we were focused on is making RSS feeds be cool again. We
Okay.
just put them in one place. We curated them a little bit. And then at some point, we're waking up in the morning and the feed doesn't load. And we look at the analytics and there's some spike that's unclear. And then we've seen that someone launched us on Product Hunt, just a random guy from the UK just posted this thing on Product Hunt, which I think today is like borderline offensive to do it to a company, right? Like, without any advance notice, just like putting someone on Product Hunt isn't, I think, the right way
It's
to
not
go.
the thing
But
to do,
back then
yeah.
it was okay. Yeah. And this is how we got the first couple thousand users that discovered the platform, a part of ourselves and some of our friends that use that. And we didn't understand what we had in our hands, but the only thing we've seen is a very passionate audience that would shout from the rooftops about this product.
So you got like a product, you felt signals of product market fit by your customers or like
Yeah, but
users, not even customers.
we weren't even able to articulate that as product market fit. We've seen some usage. We've seen like a bunch of people that are passionate about it. We didn't really understand why they're so passionate about it. But we've seen them bringing in all sorts of requests. We want this RSS feed, we want that RSS feed. The look and feel of Daily.dev was inspired by an IDE, more or less. So we wanted it to look like an IDE, which was somewhat geeky and cute. And then it started growing by itself. And I think the most important decision that we made very early on that we didn't realize how important it's going to be down the line is to open source the platform. The reason we open source the platform, this is something like, in retrospect, founders love to tell all these like amazing stories and reverse engineer everything. The honest truth is just we got so many feature requests and issues and stuff that people were raising that at some point we said like, look, the audience are developers, just open source and build the thing with the community. And that created this like initial grain of people who were obsessed about the product. By the way, some of them came to work for us full time at some point, but they were obsessed about the product and they helped build the thing. So we built it with the community. Those were like the first couple of steps that we've made.
I love that. I talk about that in the book that is part of this series, that open source could be both like a channel to get more people excited about what you're building, but also more rarely to have them contribute to your project. And what I'm hearing from you is that people actually contributed. How do you manage contribution? How do you make sure that like the code is okay? And like how do you source these type of people to work with you on projects?
At the beginning, it was quite easy, and most of the contributions were driven by people who are they were heavy power users of the platform. So they were not contributing large things. They were contributing mostly like minor improvements or content additions that are easy to review and approve. And they were high value, and we knew that they're high value because we were using the product with them. So it was a lot more intimate. Over time, obviously, it became more complicated. Now with AI, it's a nightmare. But before that, it was even before that, it was somewhat complicated. The way we used to manage it before, sort of like the pre-AI era, is that we were posting some issues that we thought would be valuable for the community to contribute. And then people would able to just jump in, assign themselves, and contribute those parts.
Most of the value that you got was not from the contribution themselves. Most of the value you got, you're saying, is from like distribution and go to market. People love the fact that it was open source, right?
Yes. And again, in retrospect, it brought in the most important element to the game, which is trust. Developers are kind of people that have seen the greatest side of the internet and the worst sides of the internet, right? They've seen it all. You can't fool them around. So by us opening up everything, really allowed them to trust it. And think about it again, like the first MVP of the product, which by the way, is still the flagship product to this day, is a browser extension, which is as suspicious as it gets, within developers.
Of course, you can install a lot of shady things with a Chrome extension.
Exactly. So it's a privacy nightmare. It's a security nightmare for a lot of people. And it takes over your new tab. That is the most demanding real estate in the digital sphere, like take over people's new tab. And we created a product that is so loved and so trusted that people would give us this real estate in order to use the product.
So other than open source, do you think that there were other things that contributed to the trust? Because I think trust is, I agree with you, trust is super important. So how do you build, other than open source, how do you build trust with developers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think to some extent the word trust is being abused a lot, especially in recent years. We never deliberately set trust as an objective. I think that what we've done right is we've always been ourselves, and with everything we've done, we've been very authentic, and sometimes even weird to some extent. Again, in retrospect. Yes, and speaking about growth, I think that at least when it comes to our story, but the more I talk with other founders in the developer space, I hear that quite often. The growth was never linear. So there was always some sort of like step changes that we've seen. And with every step change, we almost had to reinvent distribution. So there were some channels that were longer term compounding, but almost in every step of the way, we had to figure out how to jump to the next steps, or like from 5K to 10K, from 10K to 50K, to 100K, to then 500K, etc. And some of the things that eventually, we've done a lot of like stupid things, but some of the things that did end up working out were things that are not very common. I'll give an example. So when we just got started, when we just got started, there was a very smart guy named Ron Levy who used to work in Atlassian, and he said, you got to speak with a very smart guy named Amir Shvat. And we had, yeah, and we had a conversation. And in that conversation, you told me that there's a lot of people on back then Twitter that have a lot of influence around developers. And now it's my part of the story. When I started looking into that, I could see that there's one common denominator for all of these people, which almost all of them are educator, whether they're doing that as their job or whether they're doing that from passion. But this is what's common for everyone. And you told me, hey, you need to start commenting, engaging, become friends with them. And become friends with them really like sticked with me. And for about a month, I was constantly asking myself the question, like, how can I become friends with these people? Because eventually a lot of them, especially those who are doing it for a living, they have a business, you can reach out to them and you can ask for sponsored tweets or collabs or whatever. But then you're walking through the door that all the other big brands are going to. So first of all, we didn't have money. Just to be fair, like we didn't have a lot of money. We're bootstrapping the thing. So that was a great constraint to have because we couldn't just throw money at them and buy their friendship through money. So we had to figure it out in another way. So I tried to think, how can I become friends with these people? And what we ended up doing, we said, all right, these people put a lot of effort in creating content. We know how hard it is. We know that they're not very often get the recognition for it. So I've just started DMing these people, telling them, look, I've seen, it was very personal, but like generalizing the concept. I've seen all the contributions you've been doing to grow the global developer community. We want to send you a small thing as a sign of gratitude, and we expect nothing in return. And we were very serious about expecting nothing in return. And we sat down in my flat and we prepared a bunch of boxes with like cool swag. It was very personal with handwritten notes and with a branded biscuit and like, not fancy things, but things that you could see that we did from the bottom of our hearts. And we shipped those boxes to about 100 sort of like influencers. By the way, I hate that word. We can talk about that later. Content creators. But
that's a bad word.
And one thing I knew is that these people are creating content for a living, and if the box would touch them in an emotional way, they would probably do an unboxing video, and most of them did. And they also said,
who doesn't like cookies? Cookies are amazing.
Yeah. Exactly. So we just did things that are cute and we thought would speak to their either inner child or to to be very human, as simple as it sounds. And when they said thank you, we didn't stop there. We had some extra boxes that we left aside, and we told them, hey, we have a bunch of boxes left. Would you like to endorse someone else that you believe deserve to get the box because of their contribution, because of their effort to grow other developers and educate them? And that was a second win moment, because then when they gave me the name, I created a group chat between me, the content creator, and the person who has been endorsed. And I've given the other person the box, and that established like a second point of contact where I could leverage and say, hey, can we jump on a quick Zoom call? And we jumped on a quick Zoom call. We exchanged numbers. We started sending memes to one another. And this is how I became friends with a lot of the Twitter so-called back then influencers. And this really helped amplify everything we've done in the beginning. And that was at a cost of roughly 100 boxes of swag, which is something that I believe most, even bootstrap teams, can afford.
I love that, because I think that you're taking one of the core beliefs that I have, which is in order to grow a community, you need to be a member of the community. Like, you don't grow a community, you become a person in the community and you engage with other people in the community. And I love that aspect of of the story.
Yeah, 100%. I remember still that roughly 2-3 years ago, I've been asked a lot in interviews, like, how do you grow a community? And my answer was always like, genuinely, I do not know. If I had to start from scratch and someone would task me with, hey, build a community, I wouldn't know how to do it. There has to be something organic to it. There has to be something that, as you say, you genuinely belong to that movement, to a certain group of people. There is some affinity between all of you that then you can leverage. If you're smart enough, you're able to leverage that and grow it in a meaningful, healthy, and organic way. But if you're trying to orchestrate it, as you said, people feel that. I think
it's
people
unauthentic.
You
break the trust 100%. Do you think you talked a little bit about AI and about how things are changing? What are your thoughts about like the future of growing developer communities and your product?
Many thoughts. So I'm going to try to unbundle it. I think one of the most important parts that I believe most people are starting to understand is that you can outsource your knowledge, but you cannot outsource the understanding. So while AI would let you be more productive to the extent that you understand what you're doing, it's a multiplier, right? If you know what you're doing, then it's going to be a force multiplier in a positive way. If you're defocused, if you're inexperienced, etc., it might actually defocus you even more. But what I see a lot of developers starting to understand is that you actually need to understand the deep aspects and the concepts of how software works in order to be able to leverage AI in a more productive way. And that works obviously in our favor because we are exactly that kind of product that would help people understand way beyond just like knowing how to write syntax, which is like there's a bunch of other places that can help you with that. And not necessarily that you even would need that because as someone said, can't remember who, like the most popular programming language is going to be English. So this is one part. I think when it comes to building communities, the biggest challenge, and oh my God, we're starting to abuse that as well, is going to be trust. Like AI is eroding trust. When you think about developers that have always been skeptical and have always been very sensitive to anything which is not 100% authentic, non-marketing, non-salesy, etc. Now there is a new suspicion that has been added. Is it AI generated? And all of a sudden there's another thing to worry about. Is that person actually writing himself, or is it an AI writing for him? Is this person actually real? There's all sorts of new things to worry about that make it even harder. That's another thought we can dive into. And the last thought is about the future of DevRel, which I think it's been a profession of people of many years, and I'm of the opinion that at least now it should be 50% agent advocacy. So if you want to be a good DevRel, it means that you need to build the whole infrastructure of knowledge and support and everything also for non-human users.
Yes,
and I think that puts a lot of DevRels in an identity crisis.
It's such a strong point. I'm sorry I cut you off, but like such a strong point. We talked to Zeno from Resend, and he said that like a lot of his new customers are becoming AI developers. So like the process of like even adding provisioning API so that the AI could go in and start creating its own user is super critical. So I love that point because I think developer advocacy needs to redefine what developer is. On the one spectrum, you have the non-developers that are becoming developers, creators. And on the other side, you have AI agents that are going to use your product as a developer.
Definitely. And I think at least one of my counterintuitive takes is that DevRel was always a profession that involved huge portions of empathy. And as a matter of fact, in order to win with agents, you have to be 10 times more empathetic than with humans. You want to think about agents as people with disability that walk in your front door with either hearing, vision disability or something. Because they are disabled to some extent. They're not like humans. They're not able to walk through all the different paper cuts that you have in your docs and in your onboarding and in your API documentation, etc. Things have to be perfect. They need to be a lot more accessible than before. And the bar is getting higher, which I think is good for everyone, both the humans and non-human users. But the level of empathy to those tiny details is becoming like 10x more important.
Yes, I agree. I think that like you need to think about like there's no AI that could walk through a process where a human can, which is like intuitively do something that is not in the documents or something like that. So like having something that is clear and simple becomes more important as time passes.
Yes, and also AI one day is going to take over the world, and you know the future of humanity is at risk. So you better be polite and empathetic,
Yeah,
so
be
they
nice.
spare your life. Yeah, be
I love
polite,
that.
be nice, eat your veggies.
Yeah, tell them not to kill us, please. Um, this has been amazing. I love the fact that both like you're very concrete with your story and what you've done, but also very humble because it's true. You build one community and extrapolating from that to any other community is a question mark. And the things that work for you could probably work for other people, but might not. So I think experimenting and seeing what works, especially in these days and with the new technology, is super exciting.
Yeah, 100%. Leave the playbooks for later stages. If you're in the early stage, especially if you've been out there, you have already like a functioning product, clear product market fit, you're scaling quickly, then what I'm going to say is probably less relevant. But if you're in the early stages and you're struggling and you're building, leave all the playbooks aside. Try to look reality in the face. Experiment a lot. Try out a lot of different things and try to put yourself in the shoes of the person you're trying to market to. You know, I mean, you say that a lot. Developer marketing is anything but marketing, and I quote that all the time. It really, I think this is the single secret that most people don't fully grasp. And once you become obsessed with that and you understand, all right, the best way to do marketing is actually to not do marketing. This is where the magic starts to happen. And there's like plenty of stories, and people can borrow our growth stories, and a lot of them are public. You can look them up. I share them on a bunch of interviews and in blog posts, etc. But eventually you want to look at your product, your customers, your community. If you need a community, by the way, not everyone needs a community. That's a different discussion, probably for a different episode. But and try to think what would make them be delighted. If you were them, what would get you excited? What would get you think, oh wow, that's like very different from everything I've seen.
I love that note. And I'll close with a thought that is like the things that I see with you, with Ivan from Daytona, and with other great advocates is authenticity, which I think ties into what you're saying. If you're authentic with yourself, is this a great product? Is it good for me? Is it good for developers? What am I wanting from developers? How do I engage with them? That is the key to trust. If you're authentic with yourself, if you're open, then you will get developer trust. And developer trust derives a lot of success for developer platforms, like you've proven. So thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation. And I hope to have you again. We opened so many threads, so we'll come and visit them at a later episode. Thank you so
At
much.
any time.